Hi, this is Mrs. Freeman. Welcome to our Math 9 videos. This video is on expressions. We're going to look at some basic definitions today, so you may need to pause in between each definition to make sure that you have everything written down in your notes. So we're going to start with constant. Constant is our first definition. Constant is a value that does not change. It is a number that is by itself in an expression. So this is going to be a plain number. So some examples might be the number 5, or a negative number such as negative 12, or something even larger like 509. So it's going to be a number that's by itself. So once again, if you're not finished writing, go ahead and pause the video so you can get the definition written down before we go on to the next one. So our next term is variable. So a variable is a letter that represents some unknown value. You're not sure what it is representing. So probably the most common variables that we use are x and y. But it can be any variable. You might have a w, or a z, or the letter a. But it's just a letter that represents some unknown value. Okay, once again, pause if you need to before you move on. Our next definition is coefficient. So a coefficient is a number that's multiplied by the variable. So it's the number that's in front of the variable. Okay, so this might be if you had 5x. These are multiplied together, and the number that's out in front, the 5, would be called your coefficient, and the x is your variable. So 5 is the coefficient. Or if you were looking at negative 7y, the negative 7 is what's being multiplied to your variable of y. So negative 7 is your coefficient. If you had an example of 12a, 12 and a are being multiplied together, so 12 is your coefficient. Once again, pause if you need to before you move on to the next definition. The last definition we have on this page is terms. So it says terms could be a single number, a variable, or numbers and variables combined. Terms are separated by addition or subtraction signs. So terms are how many things you're adding together. So let's say we had x plus y minus 10. So we're going to count how many terms. So the first term is x, the second term is y, and the last term is this negative 10. So here we have 3 terms. So how many things you're adding or subtracting? Let's try another example. Let's say we had 11y minus 7 plus 6x minus 12z. So we're talking about how many terms. So how many things are we adding or subtracting? So we have 11a, we have negative 7, we have 6x, and we have negative 12z. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this example has 4 terms. Let's try some examples. So our first example is 2x plus 6y minus 9w plus 4. So we're to find the constants, the coefficients, the variables, and the terms. So I'm going to start at the bottom actually. I'm going to start with terms. So terms are how many things we're either adding or subtracting. So we have a 2x, we have a plus 6y, we have a minus 9w, and then we have a plus 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 terms that we're looking at. Okay, and then I'm going to go to variables next. So our definition for variable was a letter that represents your unknown. So it's going to be a letter that represents an unknown. So we have a variable x, comma, we have a variable y, comma, and we have one more variable, which is a w. Okay, and then I'm going to go to coefficients, so I'm actually just working backwards here. So your coefficients are the numbers that are in front of your variables. It's what's being multiplied by your variable. So when we looked at this first term, which was 2x, we said x was the variable, so your coefficient has to be 2. Then we looked at this second term, which was 6y. We said our variable was y, so the coefficient with it is a 6. Then we looked at this third term, which is negative 9w. Our variable was a w, so the coefficient, notice this one's minus 9w, so your coefficient is a negative 9. Okay, and then our last one asks for a constant. Your constant is whatever you're adding or subtracting at the end. It's the plain number. So if we look, it's our very last term, which is this plus 4. There's no variables with it, so this is our constant, which is the number 4. Okay, let's try another example. So I'm going to work backwards here again. So I'm going to start down here with terms. So terms are how many things you're either adding or subtracting. So 2x is a term, plus 6y is a term, minus 7 is a term. So that's 3 terms that we have. Then I'm going to go to variable. So your variable is your letter that represents your unknown. So notice we have an x and we have a y. And then I'm going to go to coefficients. So your coefficients are your numbers that are being multiplied by your variable. So our first term was 2x. We already said x was our variable, so your coefficient is a 2. Our second term was 6y. So we already said our variable was y, so your coefficient would be 6. And then the last one is our constant. So our constant is our term that's our plain number. It's all by itself, so there's no variables here. So we have one constant, which is negative 7. So these are you-try problems. So you're going to want to pause the video, try these problems on your own, and then come back and watch to see if you have them correct. So this one is 6x minus 7y plus 9b. Try it on your own and then come back and check yourself. So once again, I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to start with terms. So how many terms do I have? So I have a 6x, a minus 7y, and a plus 9b. So I have 3 different terms here. Then I'm going to go to variable. So your variable is your letter that represents your unknown. So we have a variable of x, and a variable of a y, and a variable of a b. Okay. Then I'm going to go to coefficients. So coefficients are your numbers that are being multiplied by your variables, so the numbers that are in front of your variables. So we already said we had a variable of x, so that has a 6 with it. We already said we had a variable of y, so that has a negative 7 with it. And then we also have this variable of b, which it has a 9. Then our last term is constants. So your constants are your plain numbers. And notice this one doesn't have any plain numbers. Everything has this variable with it. So this doesn't have any constants at all. So none. So this is another you-try. So once again, pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back and check yourself. So I'm going to start at the bottom again. I'm going to start with terms, the number of terms that we have. So we have a term of a 6x, a plus 4t, and a minus 4. So we have 3 terms. Then we're going to go to the variables. So our variables are our letters that represent our unknown. So our variables here, sorry about that, are x and t. Then we're going to go to our coefficients. So our coefficients are numbers that are being multiplied with our variables. So we already said we had a variable of x, so that means the coefficient is 6. And we said we had a variable of t, so our coefficient there is a 4. Then our last one asks for the number of constants, or what is the constant. So your constant is your plain number, a number that doesn't have any variables with it. It's not being multiplied. And if you notice here at the end we have this -4, so our constant is a -4.